I'm not sure how much protein I need. My mother, who is a doctor, poured my protein supplements down the toilet. Do you know how many patients come to see me? And they tell me that the doctor said, it's all because of proteins. Your gynecomastia is from proteins. Your hormones are bad because of proteins. Imagine the shame and embarrassment of hearing this from doctors. That's why I made this video, so that your moms, your wives, or friends who are prejudiced against protein, after watching it, they'll say, dude, everything is safe, go ahead. In this episode, I'd like to tell you where protein came from, what types of protein there are in principle, how they differ, whether it's worth spending money on them, who among you needs them, who among you not only doesn't need them, but could actually be harmed by them where they're used, whether we give them to sick patients or if it's only athletes who take them. And accordingly, you'll find out which type of protein is best suited for your goals. Let's start with the history and definition of protein. Protein is a type of nutrient. Any food consists of different components, and protein is a common component of that food. And so do we. I have some sugar over there. Yes, sugar. I pour sugar for my guests, but I try to use as little as possible in my own tea. But sugar, what is sugar? It's a carbohydrate, but for some reason, no one is bothered that this sugar is in powder form. It doesn't bother anyone, it doesn't bother you, does it? It doesn't bother anyone at all. And many products that occur in a different form in nature, when they've been with us for a long time, for some reason are perceived as normal. And everyone knows perfectly well that there are different products that are not in the same form as they are found in nature. Why is there such an attitude toward carbs? Take sweet bars, for example. The carbs there are also not in their natural form. And that doesn't bother you, but for some reason, my dear friends, you're bothered by the fact that protein can be in powder form. To avoid bothering you, let's determine the true source. A long time ago, when they produced dairy products, let's say cheese, they would just pour out the whey. That cloudy liquid was simply thrown away and not used at all. Then, what they started doing was using some kind of filtration. They began to filter it. The point of protein is that it's just filtered. Whey that's been filtered. If we're talking about whey protein, it's simply filtered. There's no other processing, no other treatment involved. This is the form it comes in, this is how you get it. You simply remove basically the water. Naturally, if the principle is the same, then why pay more? But unfortunately, as practice shows, with one brand you might get something like jam, another brand is absorbed normally, and with a third you might have some kind of allergy. That is the raw materials, their quality, filtration, how all this happens at the factory. We don't see this, but later we sometimes feel that, for example, some protein isn't absorbed well by us. It says that this is, for example, isolate, especially with low-quality brands. But in fact, it turns out to be whey protein, and you don't digest lactose very well, and naturally your digestion isn't very good. 70, 580% is whey protein, 95% is isolate, and 99% protein concentration is hydrolysate. What is the fundamental difference? If the first differs from the second mainly by the degree of filtration, then hydrolysate, in addition to the degree of filtration, also undergoes ultrafine filtration. The fundamental difference is that you already have pre-digested protein. That is, what normally happens to protein at the beginning of the digestion phase has already occurred. When you buy hydrolysate, you are saving time. Therefore, the absorption time and the effectiveness of the hydrolysate are higher. Is it necessary to overpay? Many brands insist that yes, it is. I believe that 99% of you don't really need hydrolysate, and regular protein will be enough for you. I'm really curious. What do you use? I don't represent any brand, just interested to know. I'm curious, have you experienced any side effects from certain protein brands or types? Or maybe not very well, because if the guys read this, someone might not buy something that hasn't proven itself. In advertising, everything is painted beautifully with promises, but in reality, it can turn out to be poison. Please share your stories in the comments. Don't be shy. I'm waiting to hear from you. I also discussed this with Kirill, as he said in the 90s and the 2000s. He mentioned various protein types, some of poor quality like pig feet, while trying others, including a specific protein he found more promising. And really many people try to convince us that there is no difference in which brand you buy, but unfortunately that's not true. Therefore, if we care about quality, if we're talking about a lower percentage of allergic reactions, a lower percentage of poor absorption of the product, and a lower content of carbohydrates and fats that we don't need. Because protein is not just about proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. It also contains alpha-lactoglobulin, beta-lactoglobulin, albumin, and lactoferrin. And that's why you shouldn't think that protein is just protein. So the purer it is, in your case, the better it will be. Many people ask, how much will I gain from a jar of protein? Especially in the sports nutrition store recently. Someone came up and said, so how much will I gain from this jar? It's about the same as if you came to a store, showed the seller a package of red meat, and asked, how much muscle will I gain from this package of red meat? Yes, none. That's the correct answer. Not at all. Your training, genetics, and overall nutrition will determine the outcome. So this jar of protein has nothing to do with whether you will lose weight or gain weight. It all depends on your overall routine and schedule. Don't rely on protein shakes to do all the work for you. That's not how they function. Dosage. Many of you also ask, how much should you take at a time with this scoop? Just one scoop. Tell me, please, if I weighed 40 kilograms, should I take this scoop at a time? And if we take, let's say, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, how much should he take? The serving size is individual, with one scoop being the standard 25 1 ounce. However, the exact serving size is determined on a case-by-case basis. Many people have a misconception about the amount of protein in a single scoop, but the origin of this idea is unclear. How much is allowed? The notion that you can only absorb 20.88 ounces of protein at a time is nonsense. But at the same time, an excess of protein is not good. An excess of protein causes digestive problems. It can lead to dysbacteriosis. Too much protein is not very good. And so, let's say, water is necessary. Intermittent fasting, what is it? One of the downsides, as I see it, is that you have to consume your daily protein intake in a very short period of time. If your goal is to build muscle, or if you are actively involved in sports, it's very difficult to do this. And it's protein that's the main problem with intermittent fasting, meaning when you only eat during a 4 to 6 hour window each day. What benefits will you get? Well, let's probably start with the obvious ones. It's convenient. It's convenient because you don't have to carry containers with you all the time and you can skip meals. But I'm always for health. And I don't believe that you don't understand that the main purpose of creating protein is still to make money off of you. So to say that without protein you won't gain muscle, that you can't work out without protein, that's nonsense. If you have the opportunity to work out and eat only healthy, high quality, good food, do it. Protein is just a supplement. That is, it's on top of what you're already consuming. This will improve the quality of your workouts because no need to carry a lot around. If you don't have the opportunity to eat, you always have, so to speak, the chance to do it, so you don't have to grab something nasty. So feel free to carry it with you just in case or follow your usual daily routine. Plus, not everyone can eat that much. Back in my day, when I was competing in bodybuilding, I remember the hardest part for me was the bulking phase. My coach said I needed to bulk up since I'm naturally a big guy, and they made me eat a lot while bulking. I ate a crazy amount of red meat without any spices, without anything, and it was hard for me to get full. It's much easier for me not to eat than to eat. And many of you face the fact that you just physically can't eat that much. By the way, there's a podcast with Stanislav Lindover. Make sure to check it out. We discussed this point that many people say, I can't gain weight. And about 80 to 90% of those who can't gain weight, some people claim to eat a lot, but don't actually consume enough food. And for such people, actually consuming the amount of food they need goes beyond the comfort zone when they are forced to eat, even though they don't want to. And protein powders and gainers, among other things, help you reach your protein intake, and in the case of gainers, also help you reach your calorie intake.
Therefore, in my opinion, if we are not able to eat enough food, what you would do with chicken breasts, meat, rice, then in this case, you need to add foods with high energy density. You find it easier to eat something that you have a negative attitude towards gainers. Great.
It's actually super. By the way, I'm curious, has anyone here ever used gainers? Because, well, in my humble opinion, most of you don't need gainers. However, many people, especially when trying to bulk up, start consuming a large amount of gainers. They end up overeating with a huge calorie surplus, and as a result, they gain nothing but fat. I'm curious, do you even use gainers at all, and what did you gain from it, fat or muscle? Be sure to write about it. I'll read it, share my thoughts, and answer your questions. The protein norm. Personally, I honestly don't separate the amount of protein I consume in powder form from the amount of protein I get from regular food. The final result is what matters to me. However, it's best if more of it comes from proper food instead of powder. Because food should not only provide an energy balance and building resources, but it should also offer a certain amount of educational value. That's probably one of the downsides I experience when I consume proteins. That is, this brush effect that you get from fiber should be present. Or the feeling of satiety, which I don't get for a long period of time when I just drink protein. But there are certain types of protein that seem to solve this problem. We'll discuss them now, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Casein protein. Do I use it? I use it, and I use it exactly for the purposes it's meant for. I take it before bed so I don't have to get up at night. Because for me, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and get really hungry. So when I don't have time to eat in the evening and I don't want to stuff my stomach, I drink casein. Casein helps me feel full for longer. This protein is unique because while it's the same protein, your body absorbs it at a slower rate. So you don't lose that feeling of fullness after 15 or 20 minutes. Instead, you get a gradual absorption of protein over 3 to 4 hours. Many people associate casein protein only with pre-sleep consumption, but that's far from the truth. There are studies that show you get a good response from your workouts if you add it even after the gym. But the main thing is the daily total. There's no such thing that you absolutely have to drink a protein shake within 15 to 20 minutes. Muscle growth doesn't solely depend on that factor. It likely ranks 5th or 6th in terms of importance for muscle development. It doesn't depend on whether you drink protein or not. Should you only consume protein during bulking? Actually, absolutely not. Protein will play a good role for you both during bulking and during cutting. That is, its main purpose is simply to help you reach your daily protein intake. So don't associate it with any specific bulking, mass gaining, or cutting phase. It's used in both cases. There are trendy new types of protein, like plant-based proteins, for example. I've tried those too. Personally, plant-based proteins work for me in some ways because I'm lactose intolerant and it's easier for me to digest them than regular standard whey. But the amino acid profile of plant-based proteins is a bit poorer. Therefore, it is not a complete replacement, and it is believed that somewhere around 0.7 to 0.8 should be considered. Conditionally, it's not equivalent. You need to consume 20-30% more. If we're talking about protein, plus, well, maybe you're a vegetarian and you definitely need it to not be of animal origin, so that's your choice. There's also egg protein. Personally, egg proteins don't suit me because I'm quite allergic to them and I don't really like the effects they have on my digestive system. So try it out for yourself. Try to see which one you like, which one suits you. Many people also use soy protein. They ask, how safe is soy protein? There used to be a study that started it all, but it has long since been disproven that phytoestrogens found in soy cause feminization. To cause that, you need a huge amount of phytoestrogens. Also, most studies are still inconclusive. And there are just as many studies that say that with adequate doses of phytoestrogens, they found no connection to feminization. Therefore, my opinion is that soy protein is basically safe as long as we don't go to some crazy extremes, because even then, maybe nothing will happen either. But this point just isn't proven in the scientific research world. There are also different blends that contain, in addition to protein, for example, whey, also egg protein, casein, and even additional carbohydrates. There are even separate types of supplements where oatmeal is mixed with protein. So protein isn't just for shakes. You can actually add it, for example, when making pancakes. Special blends, basically flours labeled as protein flour, are available, but I don't know if it makes much sense to overpay for that. It's easier to just drink it separately. But the point of this flour is that it's a mix of flour for cooking together with regular powdered protein in blends with carbohydrates. I think they actually released this. Oatmeal simply mixed with protein, you can do exactly the same thing, just regular oatmeal. Pour some protein in there, add some almond milk or something, and mix it up. Do you get an excellent protein carb shake like that? We usually associate protein only with those scary jars, right? But for some reason, protein bars don't cause any negativity from our parents or our friends at all. But actually, it's basically the same powdered protein in there. The source of that protein isn't a piece of beef inside the bar, it's the same powdered protein. So protein is present, well, almost everywhere. And a lot of this powdered protein is actually also used in products that you eat every day. Well, probably the last argument, so you understand how safe it is. And in general, protein is basically safe not only for athletes, these are the points of application. We use protein in our oncology department, for example, as support for the nutritional needs of patients after major surgery. There are special drinks that contain, among other things, powdered protein. They also have minerals, amino acids, essential fats, and vitamins added. So it's basically a nutritional shake. And imagine if even an oncology patient, weakened after a major surgery, can have all this. What do you think? Can a healthy person have it too? The answer, I think, is obvious. Of course you can. And the same goes for pregnancy. Even during pregnancy, protein drinks are absolutely
Safe.
Many of you associate protein only with its building function, thinking that protein is needed just for muscle growth. But in reality, protein has many other functions. It has a plastic function, a transport function. If there isn't enough protein in your diet, your albumin levels will be low. Without sufficient albumin, everything in your body, including your hormones, will be poorly transported. By the way, I cover this topic in my free webinar. Follow the link to the webinar, where I also discuss many interesting aspects related to health. The webinar is free and lasts around 2 hours. This webinar also includes a presentation of my Fitness as Science project. So if you're interested in the topic of male hormones and a healthy lifestyle in general, the link is below. See you there.